From Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, Guided Close Read. Frederick Douglass worked not only to end the injustice of slavery in the United States, but also to extend the rights of women, who at that time were not allowed to vote. Douglass also served as a speaker for the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society and published his own newspaper, the North Star. He was known internationally as a tireless worker not only for the abolition of slavery, but for justice and equal opportunity for all. An autobiography is an account of the writer's own life. Frederick Douglass is writing about himself and about real people and actual events. Note the use of the pronouns I, me, and my. The pronouns used in a text can be clues to help you determine the author's point of view. Reread lines 1 through 10. Locate the pronouns I, me, and my in the text. From what point of view is Douglass writing? How does this point of view help Douglass achieve his purpose? Pause while you think. The text is written in first person. This point of view makes the text more personal, emphasizing the horror of slavery through his personal experience. Notice that Douglass uses the words master and mistress to refer to the people to whom he was enslaved. These were customary terms of address used by enslaved persons. Reread lines 1 through 11. What impact do the use of master and mistress have on the text, given that Douglass had been a free man for 7 years when he wrote this? What do these word choices reveal about Douglass? Pause while you think. The use of master and mistress help put the readers into Douglass's shoes at the time of the events he is recounting. Douglass's word choices imply that his comments and feelings are directed to all who owned slaves. Douglass writes a long paragraph about his mistress. He begins by praising her, but then he describes how her behavior changed because of her husband's influence and because of slavery itself. Reread lines 14 through 41. Explain Douglass's purpose in devoting so much space in his autobiography to describing his connection to his mistress. Pause while you think. Douglass's mistress had a big influence on him. She was one of 2 people who were completely in control of his life. Describing the change in her behavior helps readers understand the effects that slavery had on slave owners, as well as on the enslaved people themselves. Writers of autobiographies often tell events in order, but they may also show how events caused other events. Recognizing such causes and effects helps readers understand why and how events occur and how those events are connected. Reread lines 26 through 29. Identify the changes slavery brought about in Douglass's mistress. Pause while you think. The mistress's tender heart became stone, and her gentle nature gave way to one of tiger-like fierceness. In the next part of his autobiography, Douglass describes how he furthered his education after the mistress ceased to teach him. Reread lines 49 through 76. Find evidence that shows the attitudes of the white boys. How are these attitudes similar to or different from the attitudes of the master and mistress? Pause while you think. The boys provided kindly aid, and they expressed the liveliest sympathy when Douglass talked about slavery. Their attitude toward Douglass is very different from the harsh treatment he is used to receiving from his master and mistress. The boys are willing to help him read because as children, they don't share the fear that many slave owners had about the education of slaves. Douglass describes a book he read at age 12 that had great influence on him. It included a dialogue between a master and a slave. Reread lines 84 through 92. Explain what happens as a result of the dialogue. Why was the dialogue so interesting to Douglass, and what effect might it have had on him? Pause while you think. As a result of the dialogue in which the slave argues successfully against slavery, the master frees the slave. This text awakened Douglass to the idea that there was a way out of slavery and that freedom was possible. Beginning in line 112, Douglass describes the result of his having learned to read. Reread lines 112 through 120. Explain what Douglass believed his ability to read had caused. Cite evidence showing why he felt that way. Pause while you think. Douglass says that reading exposed him to ideas that made his life unbearable because they confirmed what he knew to be the truth but offered no solution. Remember that Douglass escaped to freedom at age 20 and wrote this autobiography about 7 years later. Reread lines 120 through 134. Why did Douglass, as a free man writing his autobiography, include these anguished thoughts that he'd had as a teenager? Pause while you think. These thoughts help readers understand his despair and also his determination to gain freedom.